I should start off by saying that I never played the first Destiny, so I didn't really have any hopes or expectations going into the second, which I think is kind of a good thing because I wasn't on board the hype train nor the hate train. I was kind of indifferent. There were a lot of people angry with the first Destiny, and many were hoping that Destiny 2 would be a huge leap forward. I can't confirm the differences for myself, but after talking to my friends who played the first one, they agree that this game is definitely an improvement on the original, but it does feel more like an expansion than a full sequel. That being said, what I can say for sure is that Destiny 2 is a flawed but fun game. One of the big complaints that a lot of people seem to have with the first Destiny is that the story was very vague and hard to follow. If you were concerned with that, I can confirm that Destiny 2 certainly has a straightforward story this time. However, it's just not good. It's not terrible either, but it's very by the numbers and everything played out exactly how I thought it would. Having a generic story isn't a huge problem by itself, but the big issue here is that there isn't anything special about its delivery. The writing and the characters were weak, and the game constantly berates you with lame jokes no matter what the situation is. One of the biggest problems with the story is that it feels like a watered down Disney Channel version of a game that could have and should have been better in the story department. And the problem isn't that the game is rated T. Games like Horizon and Uncharted have shown that you don't need to have an M rating to tell an engaging and mature feeling story. Destiny 2, on the other hand, is just too lighthearted for its own good. Most of the story was filled with jokes and smart-ass remarks, so when a serious moment came along, it was kind of impossible to actually take it seriously. It was also hard to care about any of the characters because none of them felt like actual characters. They were all paper thin and added nothing to the story except for giving you directions and helping you defeat the enemy. They didn't really do anything besides that. Cade was the only one that even had some sort of a side story, which was actually pretty entertaining, but it was short and didn't go anywhere. None of the other characters had any real development, and that is a bit sad because Bungie released an animated short about Zavala's background, and it was actually really good. And it made me wonder why they didn't do anything like this for the actual game. And that's the other big problem. The story doesn't explore enough of the world of Destiny. Destiny has some very detailed lore, so it boggles my mind why they don't add more stuff into the actual game. I would rather do the stuff happening in the short film than save the world from another very unintimidating villain. Speaking of him, quick side note, the final boss fight was awful. Minor spoiler warning, but the game must think players have a severe disability or something, because they literally gave you infinite supers to fight him. Yeah, I'm serious, there is no possible way to lose this fight. I had a harder time fighting the bosses and the strikes in public events than I did fighting the final boss of the game. Anyway, back on topic. The story frustrates me because I know there is so much more in the world of Destiny and so many other interesting stories to tell. To make matters worse, the campaign missions weren't very good either, and a lot of them had the exact same gameplay loop. Most of the missions play out like this: touch a button, wait for the horde of enemies to arrive, kill the enemies, continue forward, and repeat. Thankfully, you can co-op the whole campaign, and the core gameplay mechanics are fun, so it was still relatively entertaining. That being said, if you asked me to name the best missions, I would have trouble telling you even one main mission that stood out to me. While the campaign isn't very interesting, the core gameplay itself is really good. The gunplay is smooth and there are lots of different weapons to choose from. The characters and abilities are also pretty fun and interesting, even though some are clearly better than others. I also want to say that this game is meant to be played with friends. Seriously, I would not recommend this game to anyone as a single player experience. It's just nowhere near as fun as co-op, because you can literally co-op everything in this game, which is awesome. The game also has these open world sections on 4 different planets. These sections are online and random players can pop in and out. This gives the game a bit of an MMO feeling and it helps make the world feel alive. You can travel around and join other players to complete public events and various other side activities. Destiny 2 also features a fun multiplayer mode with both competitive and quick play options, with each having multiple game types within them. You can choose to play in either the competitive or quick play cycles, but you can't pick which specific game type you want to play, which is a bit annoying. The only quick play game mode I like is Control, but since it's random, I usually end up playing Clash or Supremacy, both of which I hate. I liked both competitive modes, however, so I usually just stick to comp when playing. I will say though, the detonation timers and countdown are way too long. Like, they need to be shortened by a good 10-15 seconds for it to actually feel intense. Many times it ended up being less of a fight to plant and defuse and more of a kill everyone and worry about that stuff later. Other than those complaints, however, I do enjoy the multiplayer and I think it's pretty well developed.
All up to you now.
After completing the campaign, your main goal in Destiny 2 is to grind your way to a higher level, where you can gain access to special events and challenges. These events include the Nightfall Strikes, the Trials of the Nine multiplayer, and of course, the raids. These events kept me playing, and I really didn't mind the long grind because it actually felt like I was getting some worthwhile loot. Speaking of loot, Destiny 2 features a really good loot system. It's pretty similar to the first game, but it works well, and it was rewarding enough that it made me want to keep playing and try to get the best gear. And once you've collected strong enough gear, you must assemble a team of 3 for the Nightfall, 4 for the Trials of the Nine, and a team of 6 for the raid. It is a bit annoying that all these require a different number of players, but the events themselves are very fun and challenging. I think the Nightfall and Trials are great, and I really enjoyed the raid, but I do have some issues with it. My big complaint with the raid was this annoying section right here. Minor spoilers ahead about the raid, but for this part, you need to play it stealthily and sneak around these dumbass dogs. The only problem is that this is not a stealth game, so the detection system makes absolutely no sense and does not work as intended. Like, the dogs will just randomly spot you at times, and then other times they won't even notice if you run right into them. This imprecise detection led to some very frustrating moments and a lot of unnecessary anger. I did enjoy the raid overall, but god damn it was this section a pain in the ass. I think it's pretty clear to see, but Destiny 2 is a really good looking game. Some of the textures aren't the best, but the overall art style is great. I also thought the different worlds had a lot of detail in them, and they honestly felt like a really fleshed out version of No Man's Sky, which is a good thing. The environments were pretty diverse and the use of color throughout the world is great. The music is also really good, but in my opinion it didn't really stand out quite enough. To be fair, this might have been because there weren't any memorable campaign moments, so the music just kind of blended into it. But when I took a second to listen to it on its own, I realized that it does a great job of setting the mood. The game also runs really well, and I didn't experience any issues while playing it. In fact, I think the frame rate only dropped like once or twice, and the game as a whole was pretty well optimized. Destiny 2 is a bit of a weird game for me because I think it has a lot of problems, but I still played it for close to 100 hours. To be fair, the main reason I played it so much was because I had several friends playing it with me, but still, I can't deny that it is pretty fun to play. And while the campaign kinda sucks, the core gameplay is fun, the worlds are engaging, and the endgame is great. There are some other problems here and there, but I think overall, it's a pretty good game, and it's certainly a lot of fun to play through with friends.